guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. So what have we got here? A little while ago you saw me review this beautiful kit from Revell, and it is a very nice kit, especially for the money, and I think it's about time we got on with the build of it. So making a start on this today. So this will obviously be part one. Not sure how many parts it's going to be, but we shall see by the end of it, won't we? So put the box out of the way. We've got the instructions, and we need to sort of look through the instructions and see what it is we're going to do and watch the camera go mental. So we've got all these Revell colour callouts which we're going to ignore because I don't like this having the mist cockpit green when every manufacturer under the sun makes cockpit green. So we've got sprue callouts there which we don't need, and then we straight into, that's number 6. Here we go. Step 1. Okay, so lovely colour instructions as usual from Revell, not too glossy either, which is good. Basically we can see here that step 1 is gluing the seat together, and then we're going to go on doing the armour. We've got some holes to drill, assemble all the armour, assemble the floor plates for the pilot to put his feet on, and then paint and assemble these side panels here. And then we're going to go over the page and we're going to glue the frame halves together, glue the rear bulkhead on, start adding the flooring up underneath, add the control column and the actuator, the lever there, and then over the page rudder pedals, and then adding in the compass, adding in the armour behind, and then we're going to put the seat in, showing you all there. And then we've got this heater pipe going in, showing you all where it's going. It's all nicely laid out. And then we've got the handle going on the side there, and then over the page into here, we're adding the instrument panel, and then putting the cockpit and the engine unit into the fuselage, and then bringing the fuselage halves together. And if you notice here, it says not to glue the cockpit in. I'm kind of wondering if you could glue the fuselage together. Yes, here's the fuselage, and then slot the cockpit in after. I'm kind of wondering, so then you can work on these seams without getting all dusty in your cockpit. So that's something we will have a look at. So going back to step 1, we need to start with the seat. And the reason I just showed you all those stages is because we've got all the parts here, all off the sprues, all cleaned up, all de-seamed and all done, which is not my usual way of working. So we've got all the bits there, all done. Now, I can see I've still got some more seam work to do on there. We've got ejector pin marks to fill in. We've got a great big one here in this side panel that I want to fill in. And there's a couple of other ones I think we need to look at as well. But I think we'll get a little bit of assembly done first and then see where we go from there. I've also noticed we've got a part broken here. So I'm going to grab some extra thin, use the quick setting. Paul's been having trouble with his kit. By the time you see this, Paul probably will have finished his. But Paul's been having some trouble with his with the glue, and he's had to use the quick setting because the ordinary extra thin wouldn't work. And I can see I've still got some seam work to do there, so we're going to let that glue dry. And the first thing I'm going to do is get some little bits of sub-assemblies done, and then get everything primed in black. And the reason I'm going to prime it is, 1, it'll show up any marks we need to get rid of. 2, is the perfect undercoat for the silver, which this is going to be. And I'm going to spray this in LP72 mica silver. The reason I'm doing that is because a lot of people think this was aluminium tubing left bare, and it's not. And I've learnt something today that also helps with my Lancaster. Looking at stuff on the internet, the radiator in here was actually made of copper and painted aluminium. So there have been a lot of people that have argued with me about the Lancaster because I believe those radiators were painted in grey-green. I've seen pictures in videos, black and white, on the assembly line, and they are definitely not silver. They look the same colour as the engine bearers, which are grey-green. So if the radiators in this were made of copper, then one would assume the radiators in the Lancaster were also made of copper. So they won't be aluminium, they'll be painted aluminium. So I also read that, you know, the Spitfire, in the back of the Spitfire here, it's all aluminium. Some are bare aluminium, some were actually painted aluminium. So worth bearing in mind. I've also noticed we've got ejector pin marks on the seat here. Now, looking at how the seat goes together, I think they're going to show. So we need to be a little bit careful here of how we're going to be going, because where's the seat base? There's the seat base. So that bit goes off to the right hand side, so that's going to glue onto there like that. Okay, and then that's going to go into there. Yep, that ejector pin mark there and there is going to be very, very visible. This looks very similar actually to the Spitfire seat, but it was painted aluminium. So there we go. So I've obviously haven't done all my cleaning up, which I said I'd done. So what I'm going to do first of all is get these ejector pin marks filled in. So there's the other side there, and this one's got the lever on the side of it. So we're going to get that done as well. So I'm going to get these ejector pin marks done. I want to get that one there done. In fact, I'm going to go through all the parts to see where we've got ejector pin marks that need sorting. This is the actual engine assembly, but I've basically got everything off the sprues here to enable us to get the fuselage halves together, which is what I want to try and get done in this first video. So I'm not going to be filming as much as I normally do. We're going to try and get a lot more work done and a shorter video time just for this one. So I'll see you in a minute. Right, so I've glued the back rest of the seat onto the base. This is very similar. If you remember my 124th Airfix Spitfire, the seat assembly is exactly the same, only the way it's laid out. Only this one doesn't have a line there, so I have filled in. If you remember on the Airfix one, I basically filled in the seam and then re-scribed the line higher up because I felt the drawing was too low. But on this one there is no seam there, so I've basically glued it together and just used some of my wonderful stuff that I recommend all of you get. This is the VMS Flexi 5K CA Black Thin. It's brilliant. It's the best CA glue on the planet, I reckon. So there we go. So that's glued together. I used the actual seat as a jig, and so now it's time. We're going to glue the seat together. So the base is going to go, there's like a little square lug on there, a little square peg on there. So the base is going to go in like that. Now it seems to be sort of a little bit springy, so what I'm going to do is just give this a little tweak because it seems to be wanting to spring apart. So what we'll do, there we go, that's better. So we're going to push the base in. In fact, I think I'll glue the back first and then we can glue the bottom afterwards. I'm using extra thin quick setting because, as I said, I know that Paul had trouble getting it to glue with the ordinary extra thin, so I don't want to have the same problems and find them later on with it all falling apart. So that's going to go in like that. So I'm just going to glue the back first, and then once that's gone off we can do the bottom. I'm sure that's right how it goes with the seat backrest flush there. This is one of the problems with this kit. There's lots of, yes it is. So get it flush down the front there, and we'll have to put some filler in there, I think, or some super glue or something, because we don't want a gap there. We don't want a step. We want a nice flowing joint. So that's going like that, and then put some glue into there. Get this seat to all sort of go together, and there we are. So once that's dry, then we can put some glue on the bottom, peg the sides together to make sure we don't have a big gap in the bottom, and then I'll just put some Mr. Surfacer in there and move the cotton bud, and that will get us a nice radius. Here I'll put super glue to fill that in and sand it first. So there we go. In fact, I've got some here fresh, so I'll use this now while it's fresh, because it does go a little bit rubbery. I think it's because I've been using accelerator and I've got some onto the applicator, so that's probably why I'm seeing this rubberiness. You can see it's all gone quite hard, not hard, rubbery. There we go. So that can sit in there and dry and fill those little gaps. we'll sand that out when we're ready. So moving on, we've got this armour plate here. I've drilled the holes. We've got a 1mm hole there. I also had to drill that hole up there at the top because it was all flashed over. So basically we've got this piece here. It's going to go on to this piece here with the square side up. The ejector pins on the back don't matter because they're going to be hidden within the fuselage. So that's going to go like that, and that's going to go, you've got these 3 holes across here, you've got 3 pins on the back of there. So that's going to go in like that. So here you can see what I'm doing is building up sub-assemblies ready for priming and painting. Just give that a squeeze down, and that's gone down nicely there. So that's all cool. And then moving on to step 3, we're going to add these extra bits of armour plating onto here, so it's all getting covered up. So that's what our 2 drilled holes were for. So what we can do there, I've left a bit of sprue nib on there, I think, haven't I? No, it's just a loose piece. What we can do here is just glue it from behind, so we can put some extra thin in behind there, just like so. That'll glue that in, and then we've got the upper one here, E5 is going in. It's got some rivet detail in there, and that's going to be the sort of headrest, if you like, for the seat. Drop a glue in there, drop a glue in there. If we glue it from behind, we'll get no witness of any glue marks or anything, and it'll all look cool. So that's step 3 done there, so that's ready for painting. And then we've got these footrests going onto the tubular frame for the floor. So they're a really clever design actually. You've got these three lugs on each part, and then they sort of align in here, so it's going that way round, and you've got those 3 pegs, so you've got 1 peg on the inside, 1 peg on the outside, which is giving you the sideways alignment, and 1 peg goes in the slot. So it's really clever little design for what could be a really flimsy little assembly. I think this whole thing is going to be quite flimsy. You should have to be careful not to break it. But if they do a new tool Typhoon, that'll be really interesting as well, because the Typhoon has a very similar cockpit layout. So that's that done. So we've done step 4. Here we've got these levers and stuff. I'm tempted to paint. I may actually have a look at that one there. So that is that side. I've done the ejector pin there, as you can see, and sanded it out. I have been in touch with Paul. I asked him if you can actually see any of this, and he just said nope, you can't see any of it once it's all together. But you know, I thought I'd do it anyway because the audience might complain if I don't do it properly. There we go. Right. So I've also got to decide what I'm doing for seat belts. I'm thinking we've got the seat belts that came in the Border Models Lancaster, but I've used the moulded seat, so I might actually use them. I do have some others, but I think I might use the ones from the Lancaster. Why am I cleaning? I don't need that. What I need is this part here. This is part G28, and they're showing this going in here, like onto there and onto there. So I think I may well. No, I'll leave that off. It'll make it much easier because I'm going to have to mask and spray that area there green. So it'll make it easier if I leave that off. But I have noticed that that pin on the end of there doesn't go into that hole. So I'm going to either sand down the pin or open up the hole. So what diameter is this pin? I would recommend you get these if you're into modelling. Get yourself some of these. They're well worth having. So that pin is 0.9. So we can take one of our 0.9 drills with these horrible things. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So take a 0.9 drill and just, where was it there? Oh, according to that, that's already 0.9 because that's going in fine. What I'll do is just drill it a bit deeper. In fact, what I'll do, I will go 1 mil. Just take a little slither out of it. There we go. And when it's painted as well, it will become even tighter again. So there we are. Here we go. So that'll go in lovely now. Once the we'll glue that with a bit of super glue once the paint once it's all painted. So I'm not going to glue that in now. And then going over the page, well, that pipe going in, I'm not going to glue that in because it's going to cover up all that green area. It'd be easier to just stick it in after. And then here we're putting the assembly together. We're not going to glue that in. We've got the bulkhead going on, obviously you can't do any of that. Got that piece going up in there, there. We can't do any of that. And turning over the page, we've got the rudder with that little adjuster on. I've already done that so that I didn't lose the little adjuster. So that is already glued on. As you can see there, you've got the little adjuster glued into the rudder pedals. Shall I fit the compass? Where's that piece? What's that bit there? Quite high up. That's that bit there, isn't it? So we could actually fit the compass onto there, but it might be, I'm going to paint the outside of the compass. They're telling you to paint it B. I think the outside of the compass should be like a light grey colour. B is black. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll paint it grey. I'll leave it off and paint it separately. Seats going in there, obviously can't do that. That's going in, can't do that. That lever's going on there, can't do that. Because I don't know which position it's going to go in radially. Can't build the instrument panel. We can build up the engine, can't we? And then we can paint that all together. So we've got the two engine halves here. So we'll just get these together. Let's try the Tamiya extra thin, see if it works. As Paul asked the question, does extra thin go off? Well, I don't think it can, because it's basically made up of a mixture of chemicals. The only thing I can think is that if maybe one of the chemicals in it evaporates more than the others, if you've got chemicals A, B, C and chemical B evaporates more than the other, you could end up with like an AC in your bottle rather than ABC. Let's just push that down on the bench to get it all level. But it seems to be working fine with it, with my kit. So I don't really know what's going on there. So maybe Paul's glue has gone off. It certainly doesn't seem to be gluing as well as the quick setting does. That's what we'll do in a minute. We'll try one of these. What have I got here? These are my Mr. Hobby cements. We'll try those. See what they're like, how they work with it. We'll get some sprue perhaps and do a test. So there's our dummy engine glued together, and then we got this spindle going in the front here, like that, and then this is going to go over. I noticed Paul glued this because it said it didn't say to not glue it, but I'm not sure if it should be glued or not. So that's going to go on. What's going to hold that on? So that won't go through. If we're expected to glue the propeller on, that's not going to go in there. So that is a very tight fit in there, as you can hear. So once again, as I say, these things are dead handy. We'll measure that, and that is 1 point. What it is, it's got flash on it. That's what's causing us the problems. It's the mould seam, not the flash, sorry. So we'll just take off the mould seam. Try it that way because it makes it easier to grab. There we go. Just by removing that mould seam, it'll go together fine now. There we are. That's going to go in there. So what's going to align? Oh, okay. I was kind of wondering what's going to align this, but you've got cutouts on the sides here. I'm just going to make sure those ejector pins don't have any raised areas on them. So we'll sand them. Make sure they're flat. That's going to go together like so. Upside down. That's well engineered, you see. You've got a peg on there and a slot in there, so it won't physically go together the wrong way. This is what all manufacturers should be doing, so it stops people putting things upside down, doesn't it, Paul? So there we go. So I think we'll clamp that up once it's glued. Let's try this Mr. Cement S, the Mr. Hobby one. Get some in there and let it capillary around. That seems to stick that lovely. Okay, so that glue could go off there. Right, so we can leave that all to dry now, and then we can give everything a coat of primer. Oh, we've got this this inner assembly here, so we've got that there, and then we've got this matte box. We're going to glue that in. Oops. In fact, I don't think I will, because I'm going to glue this into the fuselage half. You can see it's telling us down here to glue this into the fuselage, and there's a pin there. There's only one hole, 2 pins, but that's going to go into there, and then the top, as you can see, we can line the top up and it forms the rail. Across there it forms the rail for the canopy. So we want to make sure we get in the right place. So the reason I've left that exposed is so I can get some glue onto that pinhole and it will capillary in behind. And I'm going to see if I can put a drop in here and along there. And then what's going to happen, I'm going to get some down in there. I'm going to use the extra thing because it's got the smaller brush. That's going to need clamping because it's kind of wanting to spring away. It's not exactly the same shape. I need to raise that and make sure it's level. And I'm going to take the cockpit half that goes in here and line it all up. So that's going to go over that pin there. These 2 pins at the back are going to go there. So we can see now that panel is fitted in correctly because it fits within the framework nicely. So there we are. So that's, make sure that top edge is flush along there, because that's obviously going to be very visible. And we've got a little bit of filling to do there, although we could leave that because it's part of the door that opens, isn't it? So there we are. So I'm going to come along with my Mr. Hobby glue and make sure that's in there nice and solid so it doesn't get knocked around and move. I've just noticed there's a little bit of, tiny bit of flash on top of there. You know, nice, so that we can paint that green and not worry about messing up with glues and stuff. And then we're going to be putting the fuselage halves together. We've got this part here, E27, which is, where is it? It's here somewhere, there it is. That's going in the other fuselage half. We've got an ejector pin right behind it, so I'm going to get rid of that before I put that in. So I'm going to get rid of those ejector pin marks, and then I'm going to get everything sprayed in black, and then we'll come back and see how it all looks. And as if by magic, a few hours later, there we go, all painted. So we've got the insides of the fuselage done with the green. This is my own mix, slightly lighter than the XF71 interior green, and it's good because when you close it all up, it looks slightly darker. For more reference on that, go see the Lancaster. Done these frames, they're sprayed in aluminium. That's actually LP72 I've used on there because it looks like they were painted with aluminium paint. So we want them to look like aluminium paint, not sort of polished aluminium or chrome or anything. So and then masked up and then sprayed in the green bits on there. Lots of masking. In fact, I've just noticed I've left a piece of masking tape on this one, which I can take off, because you like to see unmasking, don't you? You all do. Oh, come on. Cheap tweezers, they don't grip properly. I should have used my Anise ones. There we go. So that's that. Then we've got lots of detail painting to do on them. All the rest of it, we've got our seat there is done. in the aluminium paint. So that's all looking good. We used not Mr. Surfacer, I used super glue to get that filling done in there so it looks like one piece rather than separate pieces. I'll put some belts in there, everything will get a wash. We've got this is part of the floor I think here. It's actually painted green and you've got the silver around it. So again, painted the silver first, masked up, painted the green. We've got our little bit there, I don't know what's caught in there. Be so careful with all these very flimsy little bits. We've got this front bulkhead here, although we're never going to see it. I thought I may as well do it because it looks nice for you guys. We've got the crossbar there is aluminium and the rest of it is green, so that's all cool. We've got the armour plate there. It's all had a gloss coat, as I say, of LP9. We've got the instrument panel there, which again has had a gloss coat of LP9, so I can get the decals on there. And we're all looking good. So, and then over here, we've got three colours. We've got the aluminium first. I masked that up and painted the green, and now we've got to do the lever black, which I should probably brush paint. And we've got this little console that goes down the side, and I've got to do all those buttons on there as well. So we'll have to see how they come out. The other thing I'll look at is, I should have put some clear coat on there, shouldn't I? Because that needs a decal on it on the compass. The other thing we've got to look at is, what was I just about to say? Seeing that compass there has put me off my throw. I can't remember now. So basically we got some, oh that's what I was going to show you. On the side panel here, in the instructions they tell you to leave this here silver and paint these uprights green, but I think these are actually supposed to be green because it's like part of the fuselage, it's part of the stringer in the fuselage, so I've painted mine green. Because certainly on the other side, that's where that sort of panel that I just showed you with the switches is, and that's green. So I've painted it green to get some balance. But when it all goes into the fuselage, as you can see here, it all fits in. What we doing? Where does it go? It goes in like that, doesn't it? That's right. I was trying to put it too high. It's got those pins there that line up. So that goes in like that, so you can see now, once again, we've got this lovely sort of contrast between all the colours and everything. And of course we'll get some detail painting in that. These areas in here got to be painted white and they get decals on them. So yeah, it's all going to look pretty good when it's done. And you're not really going to see any of it, because when you look down inside the fuselage, all you can see is the top of the rail. So we'll see how it all comes out anyway. The clear coat is still a bit sticky, so I'm tempting fate by messing with it all really. Still got me dog ear problems. I had a dog ear in this one. I had to dig it out. We've got a dog ear there, look. Which we can possibly dig out, I don't know. But yeah, never mind. I don't do car bodies luckily, so it's not really such an issue. And it's not really in anywhere where it's going to notice either. So the ejector pin marks, I sort of got them out. This one here I haven't worried about too much because it's behind a rib. That one there I'm talking about. These down the bottom, you're not really going to see them, so I've just quickly rubbed them over just to get rid of the sharp edges really. But as I say, when you look down in there, you know, you ain't going to see any of it down in there. It's got all the framework and everything in there, so just done it because it's good practice to do it, and it shows you guys how I do it as well. So all good. That armour plate looks lovely with those rivets in the top. Again, it's all been gloss coated, so when it gets a wash it doesn't stain the paint. One of the problems I find with Tamiya matte paint, if you put an oil wash on them, the paint kind of absorbs the oil wash and it darkens everything. So I give it a clear coat, just a quick once over, nothing too special. And then when you put the wash in, it doesn't sort of soak in. It just sort of runs into the corners and that. Somebody said to me you can actually put white spirit on first or odorless thinners first, and the oil wash will run away. But I find it still stains. And with it clear coated, you can wipe it all off. If you don't like the colour, you can wipe it off and start again. But it's all going to get a wash because it's going to make all the detail pop. And there is a lot of detail. It's really, really nice, this kit. So I shall see you when I've done some detail painting, I guess, or when I've done the instrument panel or whatever. It's going to be tomorrow now because it's getting quite late. So I'll see you for that. And so we've done quite a bit since we last visited. So instrument panel is done with the kit decals. Now I don't know if you can make this out here, But if you look, right at the point with, if you look at these instruments, if you look like at this one here, you can see that the decal isn't perfectly in the circle. The decals don't actually fit very well. What I found was that you've got 1, 2, 3 decals on there, and I found I had to cut these on the sides, otherwise these wouldn't reach their circle. So as you can see, these aren't too bad, these aren't too bad, but I have had to cut them. These in the middle, probably cut them into 3s or 6 or something, or probably cut them vertically and make 3 pairs. But I think for what you're going to see, they're absolutely fine. You can see I've got satin satin varnish on the actual instrument panel itself, and then gloss in the dials. So we've got a nice sort of glass dial effect on there. All of the side panels and everything, as you can see here, we've got there's one of the side panels there, and you can see we've painted in some details and given it a bit of a wash. I've used a black brown wash and then gone over the cotton bud, removed it all, and then gone over with a satin clear. You can see there's the panel there. Looking around at different references, I'm seeing all sorts of different colours. Some look like wartime as well. So they tell you in the instructions to paint this button here red, and ones I've found generally had it in brass, so I've done it in brass. I don't think it really matters. You're not going to see any of it. A lot of this I've done it purely for you guys to see what it's like. As this is part of like a kit review, it's nice, it's all there. I mean, you can see that panel there, you got the decals that go on the sides and everything, and paint it up and make it all look lovely. But it's all a bit soft, and it's very it's got lots of seam lines on it, and I don't know if you can see on here, but the moulding is all a bit sort of chunky and soft. It could be better, but you know, but as I say, for what you're going to see of it, I don't think it really matters. But it just could have been. I just feel it could have been a bit better. But anyway, we shall persevere. The seat looks great. We've done the seat. That's had a wash as well. So we've got some, picked out some detail in there. All the lovely detail on the back of the seat, which you're never going to see. So I've got to decide what belts I'm going to use as well. So, so all in all, I've just got to start getting this glued together now. I don't know if I'm going to do it on camera because I think it takes a long time. Having watched Paul do it, it's quite a fuss. If you look in here, you're sort of building up the seat and then the armour and then this here. And then you're kind of putting these sides together, and then you kind of have to feed everything in and get the control column in, and it's all a bit sort of, it's a bit sort of, I don't know. I'm going to see if we can change the build sequence, and if we can, I'll show you, tell you, whatever. But you know, for instance, like trying to get those rudder pedals down in there afterwards. But you can see here, I mean, I can't see why you can't put them in now, but there may be a problem getting it to go up through there if you put them in now. So that's what I want to see. I want to actually physically do it and see if it can be made to work or not. So as I say, I don't think I'll film it all. Maybe I'll just film it when we get to certain critical points. As you can see, we've got the main frame built up. It's all a bit fiddly, but if you just take your time, it goes together absolutely fine. I'm using a combination of plastic cement. I'm using the extra thin quick setting and my lovely VMS black super glue. Like I've used the super glue down here, I've used the super glue here and here, but I've used the liquid cement back here and in other places. This, in the instructions here, they tell you to put that in while you're assembling these two. What I actually did was put them together, put these two halves together loosely, slid this front bulkhead on because it's quite positive, glued that in place, and then glued these in place, and then worried about everything else, and then slip that in afterwards. You can actually, there it is there, it's that piece going across there. You can actually drop that in, that just drops straight in, and then it goes into these corners. It's going to be very difficult to show you any of this because it's all so very, very tight and everything, but it does go together very nicely indeed, and I think it really does look the part. I mean, it's, as I say, it's a bit soft, it's a little bit flashy, a bit mould seamy in places, but you know, and the other thing I'm doing is, like nearly every part I put on, I do a test fit in the fuselage halves just to make sure we're keeping everything, you know, and it fits absolutely beautifully. So with that, we've done that now. So moving over the pages, we start to get to the fiddly bits now. So you can see here, we've got this unit. After this, it would tell us to put the rudder pedals in. Now, I saw Paul struggling to get his rudder pedals in, so I thought I'll see if we can get away with it now, and you can. So what I've done is just glued them down into that. They glue into a little position in the bottom of there, and then I've put a drop of super glue on the back of there just to sort of give them a bit of extra support. And so yeah, I saw Paul struggling to get them down in there. The control column you can't get in because you can't slide that under there. So they've got all this here, and take a slide it in here and then look under there and look there and push it out. It's really nothing to worry about. It's basically get those two legs either. See, if you look in this area here, okay, this is where we're looking, this area here. So you can see I'm going to slide that up under there, get those two legs on the outside, pull it up. That round disc is going to go through and then literally push it up. That's it. I don't know what all the fuss is about. And then literally I'm going to come on with a drop of extra thin quick setting and put some glue in there. Okay, so that's that gone in there. And as it's right at the front, we're not going to really see any of it. We can get plenty of cement there, make sure it's not going to fall out. And then here you've got these two legs that are going down into two holes, which are on the back there, so we can basically come with a drop of extra thin in there and a drop of extra thin in there, and that should be that. So there we go. So you can see now we're getting more and more complex with more and more stuff being added, and it's all looking very, very nice and very, very busy. Control column is going to go in next, so that's going to go into that hole there. So that's just going to pop down in there like so, give that a little push down in, and then again from the back, extra thin into there. So that's our control column in, making sure we're not pushing anything out. Okay, so we need to glue the sides in here. So I just want to make sure it's all remaining square and everything. And just put a drop of cement in there, drop of cement in there, let it do its thing, burn the paint away, whatever. There we go, so that's the control column in. It's not telling us to, but I'm going to put the compass in now because the compass sits on there and I want to make sure I can get it in. So I'm going to put a drop of cement on there. You can see how the glue attacks the paint. We'll grab our tweezers, we'll get our compass, which hopefully won't be visible because it's not very nice. I'm used to the border models like, that's the trouble. When you think that's a £600 kit and this is a £40 kit. There we go, so there's our compass down on there. I just wanted to get that in to make sure I could get it in without the column being in the way. So that's that. Right. So got the column in, now it's this piece going in and it's sort of a bit vague where it's going to end up. But here it is here. It's great having all this pre-painted. Where's my normal tweezers? Here we go. So this is going to connect to the back of the column. So I should imagine it's going to be quite obvious where this is going to go. Is it on there? It would appear that I've got a short shot here because it's showing there a pin that's going to go into the side of that rod there. But I don't have that pin. So I'm just going to have to glue it in. Let's see if I can look at a picture afterwards, see if I can see where it goes. Yeah, that pin's been broken off. It's got a... You can see here You can see here that rod's going back from the control column and then across to that lever arm there. And you can see that I don't have that. There's my part. I don't have that big long pin on there. It's obviously been broken off. So I think what I'll do is get a bit of plastic rod. Otherwise it's just going to be sitting there in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, because I thought that was going to glue to something, but it's not. It's just going to sit in the middle of nowhere otherwise. So I think what I need to do is get a piece of plastic rod or something. Okay, there we go. I think I was looking at the instructions aren't very clear at all basically. And you've got these two rods here either side, and I think it's maybe supposed to go between these. So I've glued it to that one. I've glued it to the back of the control column. I've glued it onto the top of that wheel there. So hopefully it'll stay in place. I've used the VMS super glue, which has got like a rubber content, so it won't fall out. And all I've got to do, where I've got that black, where you can see the glue here, the black, I'll just go around there and touch that in with a bit of silver paint. But as I say, when you look inside, you know, what you can actually see of it is quite minimal. If I get the other fuselage half on, show you just how beautiful it all fits. It really is very, very nice. See, it closes around that absolutely beautifully. Job done. But as you can see when you look down inside, I mean, I suppose the control column is quite prominent, but anyway, there we go. But you can see, you can hardly see the instrument panel at all. So as I was saying, with the way those decals work out, I shouldn't worry about it too much. Right, as I say, it's all a bit soft, but it does look very, very nice, doesn't it? Imagine if Tamiya made this, it would be absolutely perfect. Right, so we've already done the compass, we've already done the rudders. This, hang on, I'm jumping ahead here, aren't I? Nope, we've done that. Right, okay, so 13 rudders into there, done that. Armour plate going in the back. So this armour plate is gonna sit in here. How's it gonna go in? Just looking there, it goes in. So it sits in front of those lugs. I'm just looking at how it goes in. It sits like, okay, so we've got these 3 pins on each side here, and they're going to sit around those lugs that are sticking up that are painted green, that needn't be painted green because you're not going to see them. It's trying to squeeze itself around all that stuff at the bottom. I need to be careful I don't knock any of it off. There we go, so that's our armour plate in place. You could almost not bother gluing that in because it ain't going anywhere. But we will just put a drop on there. Just put a drop in there. A drop in there, just like so. And then once again, test it in the fuselage. You can see there, it's gorgeous, it fits perfectly. Okay, so that's our armour plate in. And then it's telling us to put our seat in. So our seat is over here. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten the harnesses, but I want to get this all up together because basically, I mean, I don't know actually if I could glue the seat to the back, build it and then put it as an assembly. I wonder if I could. I think I probably could, you know. Yeah, I think I can. So what I'm tempted to do now, that way I can build the harnesses up and actually that'd be okay to do it in situ. Right, so this seat goes in and it looks like . Okay, so we have an issue here. You've got these bits on the bottom of the seat. These bits here, they're going to line up with all this stuff down in here. So you've got this bit here that's got a hole in it. You can see there's a hole there. And on this one here there's a pin, and in the side of the seat there's a hole. So that's all going to go into there and kind of line up, I guess. So yeah, you need to put the armour in first, because otherwise you won't get the seat to fall in place. Okay, so they've gone in, so now that needs to go into there. And wow, wouldn't recommend this for beginners. God no. So we can see the pin down in there. I can't show you because I can hardly see it myself. What I don't want to do is scratch the paint on the seat. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. It's like Paul always says, he likes a challenge. This is a bloody challenge and a half, this is. Okay, so that there, that little indentation there has got to go over that pin on there, and it doesn't want to. So I'm going to do it off camera, and then I'll come back and show you what it's like when it's done. And there we go. That is the cockpit built out of the box. So we can see I've got the instrument panel on there. It's not glued in. I'm not going to glue it in because I'm going to give myself maximum amount of room I can for getting in there and doing the belts. Now, I love the way the designers have done this, and if Revell, if you can keep doing it, it's great. You can see, rather than having like pins and holes and stuff, you can see once again here we've got 4 little nubs on there which are staggered, and then they slide down over these lugs. So you can see how they fit. They kind of go over like that, so you've got one either side. It's a really good system of getting everything centered. It's really nice. They've used it a lot on this kit and I really like it. I haven't fitted the gun sight either for fear of breaking it off, but I will fit it before we put the cockpit in. Here is the gun sight. Now it's telling you here to paint it silver. I'm not sure if that's right, but basically that just goes in and sits on the back of there like so. I've got to choose which lens I'm going to use, or the sight. I'm probably going to use the round one, which is the early, and then just pop that on. But that basically is going to sit in there like that, and then when it sits in the fuselage, it's kind of sitting up through that hole. Oh, okay, it's kind of going, alright, it's going between the fuselage halves. So I wonder actually if I'd be able to get that in after the fuselage is put together. I'm guessing it'd be quite difficult to glue, won't it, once it's put together, because we won't be able to get into the I'll put it in beforehand. Okay, so that's going to go on there, so I may as well actually glue that on now, and then the glue can be going off nice and solid while we're waiting. In fact, no, I won't. I'm going to glue that on when I can get the instrument panel in and then get the fuselage halves together to make sure it's central. But that basically is that. That is the cockpit without the instrument panel. That is the cockpit out of the box. So what I've got to do now is decide which belts I'm going to use and get some belts sorted and get them painted, made up or whatever, and go from there. But that is our out of the box cockpit. I'll do some photographs and put them up with a bit of music at the end. But really happy with that. Okay, we're back. So what have we done? We now have the instrument panel glued in. We have our seat belts in there, as you can see. Let me try and get the lighting a bit better for you. I'm going to be doing my lighting very shortly. So there you go, you can see we've got our seat belts in there, all very nice. And they are actually, I don't think they're actually correct. I think they should have a piece on the back. They are Tamiya seat belts, the stainless steel ones from the Mosquito, the 1/32 scale Mosquito, and they are the navigator seat belts because the pilot seat belts cut short at the top. I was going to use the Lancaster Border Models one, but they're the same. You can see on the back here at the top they're cut off short because they just bolt to the top of the bomber's seat. They kind of, the pilot seat, sorry, they kind of bolt here rather than going up through the hole. So I have got some HGW Spitfire Mark 9 belts, but I don't want to use HGW belts on this because you can't really see any of it. So I just thought I'd do that. And we've got the belts on the bottom there. And what I did, I annealed them first with a cigarette lighter, let them get glow red, and then just let them cool. And that makes them a lot softer and easier to work with. They're not all springy then. And as you can see, we've got them to lay down very nice. We don't have any anti-gravity, which we see in some model aircraft, where you see them sort of coming out and going like that, which is they would not do. So there we go. So that's those in. I have also put some MiG ammo airfield dust. I got this from Ed over at Premium Hobbies. This is part of an airplane's dust effects kit, and we have here airfield dust, and you can see it's a very light colour because these things were in, you know, they were in fields in the summer, in the winter, mud, dust, whatever blowing around. And you know, if you've ever left your car parked next to a sort of muddy area with other things running past and stuff, you'll know how dusty it gets in a matter of hours in the middle of the summer. So I just thought I'd give it a little bit of dust. So we've got some dust, I don't know if you can make it out there on the seat. We've got some dust on the seat, and I've got some dust down around the rudder pedals. And it's kind of an experiment to see how it goes. This is a, you know, a very cheap kit that you can't really see a lot of, so it's good to have this little bit of reference going forward. So that's that one. So I've used that. The seat belts are, I basically, as I say, I annealed them. I bent them roughly into shape, and then I got them out and held them in some crocodile clamps, these little things here, and then painted them with LP16. Sorry, I didn't paint them with LP16. First of all, I gave them some of this. This is the VMS Metal Prep 4K. Now, the one thing I don't like about this, it has to be brushed on, so it's no good for large areas where you're looking for a nice surface, unless you can actually brush it and it'll flow. I don't know, it is very, very thin, but they do tell you to shake it for 30 seconds, so obviously it needs a lot of agitating, but basically it's going to be like an acid etch. And it does appear to work very well, because I've bent these belts around and the paint hasn't cracked at all. I do actually have the Edward seat belts for that same kit. But the thing I don't like about the Edward photo etch seat belts, the brass ones, I don't know about the steel, and certainly not the fabric. They're made by HGW, but the Edward, I believe they're made by HGW anyway. The Edward photo etch seat belts that are painted, I don't like them at all. The paint just cracks off when you bend them. So obviously, when you come to bend them and you're doing, you know, like an area like this, say, where you're bending the belt over the side of the seat, the paint just flakes off. It's horrible. So I thought I'd use these, and they're plenty good enough. It's just to represent something, and as you'll see in a minute, you can't really see any of it anyway, but it's nice to have something there. So yeah, basically I gave them a prep with this. Okay, let that dry for 20 minutes. Then I sprayed them with Tamiya LP16, okay, which is Deck Tan, which is a very, very light brown colour, just in case you're wondering. Tamiya LP16. There you go, and you can see the colour. It's a very, very light Deck Tan colour. Then I went over them, brush painted the buckles in silver, and the little eyelets I painted in gold to represent brass. Okay, that's done. And then I've done the little leather bits on there in brown just to add a bit of interest. You've got the triangle at the top there, and then you've got the two little bits. Then I gave them some Modeller's World Oil Wash, black brown, which is great. Then I glued them in with Flexi-5. This is like an ad. People ask what I use, so this is why I'm doing this. It's not an advert. I use this, the VMS Flexi-5 KCA black thin, Okay, so glued them in with that, and you can get all of this from Premium Hobbies down in Weston-super-Mare. And then finally, once they were in, something I've never tried before, but I thought I'd give it a go. Where the belts sit in the bottom of the seat, rather than use super glue, I thought they don't need to be sort of held in place, if you like, because no one's going to be knocking them or pulling them, but they just need to be kind of prevented from springing around and stuff, or vibration. If you put the airplane down heavy, they could vibrate and flicker, and the glue on the sides could break. So I just, on the end of a cocktail stick, I put some of this AK Ultra Flat varnish on there. This ultra matte varnish, it's the flattest varnish I know of. Great stuff, but it's not very hard wearing. It's almost like a glue. So, and it's very, very thin. So I basically just put a drop down in the seat, and literally a drop down in the bottom of the seat, and let it just put it under everything and float around. And I think it's actually helped to glue those belts in place. So you might want to give that a go, and it seemed to have worked really well. I've also glued in, I said in an earlier segment that gun sight should be silver. I don't know what I was thinking of. It says B in the instructions, and I saw that as G. So I've actually gone over it with some matte black, and then give it a very light dry brushing just to add some life to it. So so you can see the gun sight is in there. I've used the early type round sight on there. So yeah, all in all, really happy with it, and you know, for the money, it's gorgeous. So at the end of this video, which is going to be coming up in a minute, I'll put some music over some photographs, and I've done some photographs initially of the cockpit out of the box without the gun sight, and then I've done some photographs of it, I think, with the gun sight and with the belts in place. The other thing to remember when you fit the gun sight, I would recommend don't use a super glue, use something like Tamiya Extra Thin, glue it in. It only mounts back here on the back of the instrument panel, okay? And then as soon as you've done that, get it into your fuselage, like so. Okay, get it in there. Don't hang around. Get the other fuselage half on. Okay, as I say, don't hang around. You need to get this done quick. Get it together, because you can see here, or you can't see there because my lighting is garbage. There you go. You can see there that the actual thing there, the actual gun sight, fits between those two bits of plastic on the fuselage halves. So you just want to be able to twist it around and get it pulled about so they line up. And then once we've got the fuselage halves together, I'm just going to put a tiny drop of the black thin super glue in there, and that will just sort of give them, it'll kind of not only glue them in place, but it'll kind of form a blend from the round into the square, if you like. So there you go. That's a little bit of advice. But as I was saying earlier, when you look at this, especially when you've got the bottoms closed up, as you can see, you're looking in there and you can't really see much at all. So you know, it's nice to do. It's all part of the hobby. It's the fun of building. A lot of people say there's no point in doing this if you can't see it. I, to a certain extent, do say that, but at the end of the day, you know, it's what we do it for. It's the hobby. It's the fun of building. And then when you can, when you can take photographs of that beautiful little assembly there, you know, it is gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, look at it. It's bloody beautiful. It's like something out of Tamiya, really it is. I mean, the details are a little soft, as I've said, but it is very, very nice. And hopefully now in the better light you can see the dust in there. So it's now time to get the fuselage halves together. So we've got the fuselage halves. I've got a clamp on the back, just like Paul did, and I've got some tape over the top here. Something I'm finding with my kit, exactly the same as you have with the Airfix 124 Spitfire. When you get all this clamped and lined up, the front's kind of out of line, sort of like this, out of line on the seam line. So make sure you've got the front in line. Don't glue anything yet. And what I'm going to do is just, you can see I've got a clamp here and a piece of tape there, and you can see here we've got a gap that I'm squeezing together, and you can also feel a step. So what I'm going to do is push. I'm having to push this side down. Luckily we've got this open bottom end here. The cockpit isn't glued as per instructions, so the cockpit's in there nice and firm, but it's not glued. But we can push down on here, because what I'm feeling, if I go that way, you can hear that I can feel a step. Okay, if I go that way, there's nothing. So to push down on that side and get rid of that step, because we don't want to have to be sanding a living daylights out of this, because we've got this lovely textured finish on here, and we've got the ribbing as well where it's fabric. So I've now got a step going the other way, so I can just let it go. And if you notice, I've got the tape on the other side of that hole, so as long as we don't put any glue on the right hand side as you're looking at it of that hole, it can't capillary past that hole. If we put glue where that tape is, it will run out and go underneath the tape and it'll ruin our surface finish. So what I want to do, I've got some tape here at the ready. You've seen me do this before, guys, unless you're new to the channel. I'm going to glue it, hold it, let the glue gel off so it won't any longer capillary, then get it all lined up and tape it. So what I'm doing initially is getting it, what I have to do is put some glue on there first. Okay, so I'm using again the extra thin quick setting, because as we know, the ordinary extra thin doesn't seem to glue this plastic as well as the quick setting does. But the beauty of this is because we've got that hollow underside, we can get in here afterwards with something from behind. So I'm holding this together now. Okay, just let that glue just start to do its thing and gel off. And I'm going to feel for a step. Push this side down. Push that side down. And what I'm doing, I'm getting it so that where this fabric is, I want it doesn't matter here because I can sand that to my heart's content. But this area here, I don't want to have to sand, or very minimally. And there you go. If you go back and look at my Stuka build, you'll see I concentrated on the underside because there was raised rivet detail I didn't want to sand. So you can hear now, I've got a step that way and a step that way. So that's perfect. So I can just hold that in place, get a piece of Tamiya tape, and then pull that over nice and tight, just like that, and that will hold that together, and I can feel that my step is no longer there. Okay, so that's it. So we can just leave that to dry for 10 minutes or so, and I'll go down and I'll do that on the rest of the fuselage. And I'm only going to glue this area here. I'm not going to glue this area here until I've got the wing built up. Reason being, Paul may mention this, today is the 11th of January 2023. Paul has just last night put up part 6, so we did a live stream on Ice Queen 7's channel, and I was telling him afterwards, I noticed in here there's a step. Your kit may be the same, his was. If you run your finger over here, you'll feel there's a step. This panel here is raised in comparison to this one here. When you go this way, this one is lower to this panel here. So basically, if you like, exaggerated, it's like that. Okay, it's only a few thousandths of an inch, it's nothing, but it also puts a step into this line here. So you want to be careful and make sure you get that sanded out nice and flat, so that when you put your wing in there, it fits nicely. The step in the panels here don't really matter, because once it's camouflaged with matte paint, it's not going to show. These are panels anyway, the edges wouldn't be perfect. So there we go. Just going to check this once more, and that's lovely. Okay, now what we can do now, because this is open to the elements, I think this glue will go in there. Yeah, I can get that nozzle in there, and I can just put a drop, just one drop in there. There we go. And then with my glue looper, I can actually pull that glue up to that hole, and I can push it down to here, all the way down to that bulkhead, over those little clamp bits. Okay, and that will back that joint up beautifully. Remember, this is a rubberized glue, I believe that's where the black comes from, but it's absolutely brilliant, and it will back up that joint brilliantly, and that will give us plenty of strength in that area and enable us to do some sanding and sort of beat it about and stuff. So there we are. So I wouldn't recommend putting an accelerator on there, because there's quite a lot of glue in there. I probably put slightly too much in there. You can see down in there we've got the glue. I wouldn't recommend putting an accelerator in there because it tends to cause heat. So you have been warned. So we'll let that go off, and then I need to stand that up somewhere, and probably this, look at that, my Tamiya, my Premium Hobbies glue stand is perfect. I can get my water bottle, have that held nice and horizontal, that, and let that glue dry as it is there, and then we'll come back. I think we'll call it a day there for this video. What I'll do, this has been part 1. I think we've been about an hour, haven't we? I'm not sure. All I'm going to do is the same down here as I've done on the top. I'll glue it together. As I say, I'm going to leave the front until we've got the wing, because I don't want to go and glue that front up and then find that I've got it like a banana, because as you can see, I can move that, I can hold this back solid, and I can move that front from side to side. Yeah, and what's happening there is the front area here is doing that, okay? And I would rather have to put a piece of plastic card there and sand it than have to mess around with all this wing leading edge. So I want to get my wing box built up, get that test fitted to make sure that fits beautifully. And as you can see, the next part of the instructions is building up that wing box. And then we're building up the wings. So I can actually get this wing box built up, get it fitted in, see how it goes. I don't know if I'll have to put the wings on or not, but I'll take you on the journey with me. But we'll get all that done, and that will be in part 2. As I say, this video, I'm intending to have this as like a 3 or 4 parter, you know, not including painting, the final painting and everything, but 3 or 4 parter in the actual build of it. So I'll see you all then for part 2, and we'll push on. We'll get all the wings done and everything in part 2 and go from there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Oh, and if you're wondering why I'm not working on the Spitfire, as I say to you in part 14, that you probably have seen by now, at the moment it's temporarily on hold just for a week or so while the clear parts have been sent away to Art Scale, and they are actually making the window mask for it. So they'll be back with me soon so I can get on with the build. Bye for now.